the world is all about money, which to me is all wrong.
I take everything like that with a pinch of salt, really, because you can't say who's best.
I take everything like that with a pinch of salt, because you can't truly say who's the best. Brian May, on the surface, seemed the perfect gentleman of rock, a soft-spoken astrophysicist who built his own guitar and composed some of the most sophisticated pieces in music history. Me and my dad talked about making a guitar, and really it happened because we couldn't afford one, he once recalled. I couldn't afford a Stratocaster. But beneath his scholarly demeanor and polite interviews was a calculating mind that kept meticulous mental notes on every guitarist he believed was intellectually inferior or undeservingly successful. The Queen guitarist, who helped create orchestral epics like Bohemian Rhapsody and anthems like We Will Rock You, is known in industry circles for his quiet but cutting evaluations of fellow players. There's a difference between playing guitar and understanding guitar, May remarked to a journalist in 1982. Some people hit notes, others create architecture. This precise, almost scientific approach to music became his way of dissecting every guitarist who crossed his radar. His judgments weren't just about differences in style. They were rooted in fundamental disagreements over what guitar music should strive to achieve, both intellectually and emotionally. For May, music was a form of architecture, an intricate construction of emotion and intellect. He had little patience for those who treated it as disposable entertainment. This mindset led to private but razor-sharp critiques of musicians ranging from flashy technical showmen to carefully packaged personalities. In his eyes, they weren't just misguided, they were missing the very point of what music was meant to be. And among the many who passed through his mental filter, few escaped entirely unscathed, especially those whose fame seemed built on speed, spectacle, or style over substance. One such figure was Yngwie Malmsteen, the neoclassical speed virtuoso whose blistering fretwork impressed millions, but, to May, represented a different and less meaningful musical philosophy. This wasn't merely a clash of playing techniques. It was a collision of two worldviews, one rooted in cerebral construction, the other in rapid-fire exhibition. And for Brian May, that difference was everything. That May's irritation with the Swedish virtuoso had nothing to do with his classical influences. What truly bothered him was watching Malmsteen place finger gymnastics above the melodic storytelling May believed to be the guitar's highest calling. The frustration reportedly began in the mid-1980s, when Malmsteen's lightning-fast arpeggios were being hailed as the future of guitar playing. According to former Polydor Records executive Chris Wright, May listened to Malmsteen's albums in detail before remarking, "He can play 1,000 notes per minute, but he's saying absolutely nothing with any of them. It's like watching someone recite the phone book at superhuman speed." For May, the problem wasn't technical skill, it was musical priorities. While May was spending countless hours constructing intricate guitar orchestrations to serve Queen's grand theatrical compositions, Malmsteen was gaining fame through what May reportedly dismissed as athletic guitar playing, and classical music butchered by someone who thinks faster automatically means better. As May told Guitar Player magazine in 1987, "Speed without purpose is just musical masturbation," defending his belief that technical mastery should always serve a compositional or emotional goal rather than exist for its own sake. The philosophical rift widened when guitar magazines began ranking players solely by their speed. At a 1988 music industry convention, May refused to join a discussion about the fastest guitarist, later telling organizers, "I'd rather be remembered for one meaningful melody than a million meaningless scales." The next figure to draw May's scrutiny was Slash from Guns N' Roses. His disdain for the top-hatted guitarist had nothing to do with Slash's blues rock style. It was about watching him construct what May saw as a carefully manufactured, rebellious guitar hero persona designed purely for commercial effect. This skepticism reportedly began in the late 1980s, as Slash was being promoted as rock's new bad boy guitarist. Former Geffen Records marketing director Al Corey recalled how May closely observed Slash's media appearances and became increasingly cynical. Saul's playing a character he invented for the cameras, the hat, the hair, the cigarettes, May reportedly said. It's all costume drama designed to sell records to people who want to buy rebellion instead of earn it. What truly unsettled May wasn't Slash's ability with the instrument, but the way he crafted his image. May's own transformation, from shy bookish student to commanding performer, was the product of decades of authentic growth. In contrast, Slash's rise to stardom seemed to May like designer danger, a deliberately packaged wildness, as authentic as a Hollywood movie set. For a man who valued honesty in both music and persona, that kind of calculated rebellion was the ultimate disappointment. The authenticity debate reached a peak when Slash's carefully crafted image began shaping the attitudes and poses of a new generation of young guitarists. At 1990 Guitar Exhibition, witnesses recalled May refusing to pose for photographs with Slash, later telling his publicist, "I won't validate someone who's turned guitar playing into method acting." Slash appeared fully committed to his rock persona and largely uninterested in May's academic viewpoint. But for May, Slash had become a symbol of the commercialization of guitar authenticity, proof that image could be marketed as convincingly as music. The next clash was with Steve Vai, and here the conflict turned into a war over educational philosophy. May's dismissal of the Berkeley-trained virtuoso wasn't rooted in a rejection of his innovative techniques, but in what he saw as the problem of allowing formal training to dominate creative expression. For May, Vai's brand of technical perfection often felt emotionally hollow, a demonstration of flawless execution without the personal discovery that gave music its soul. The intellectual tension grew throughout the 1980s, when Vai's academic precision was being praised as the future of guitar. Former Relativity Records producer Mike Varney recalled May listening to Vai's solo albums and remarking, "Steve plays every note exactly as his professors taught him, but there's no personal journey in any of it. He's executing exercises instead of expressing experiences." What troubled May wasn't Vai's skill, but his methodology. While May had built his distinctive sound through years of trial and error with homemade equipment and self-taught experimentation, Vai's acclaim came from what May reportedly called conservatory correctness, guitar playing that sounded graded by theory instructors rather than driven by raw emotion. The philosophical divide widened when music schools began teaching Vai's systematic approach as a blueprint for aspiring players. At 1989 educational seminar, witnesses recalled May questioning whether formal instruction was stifling musical instinct, telling the audience, "Learning rules before learning feelings produces musicians who sound like textbooks instead of human beings." Vai embraced his academic background without questioning its creative limitations, but to May, he embodied the institutionalization of creativity. May's most fundamental philosophical disagreement came with Joe Satriani. His frustration with the instrumental guitar master had little to do with Satriani's melodic skill. In fact, May respected it. The issue was Satriani's decision to completely abandon vocals and lyrics, which May believed stripped guitar music of its most essential communicative power. In his view, music was a language that worked best when melody and message intertwined, and Satriani's purely instrumental approach reduced it to an academic exercise, brilliant in form, but missing the human voice that, for May, gave rock its soul. The conceptual clash between Brian May and Joe Satriani deepened in the late 1980s, as Satriani's instrumental albums began achieving unprecedented commercial success. Former Relativity Records executive Cliff Coulter recalled May examining Satriani's approach with growing bewilderment, remarking, Joe's created beautiful guitar landscapes, but he's removed the human voice that gives music its emotional anchor. It's like building a house without installing any doors. For May, the issue wasn't Satriani's compositional talent, but his self-imposed artistic limitations. While May had devoted his career to using the guitar as a tool to enhance and support vocal storytelling within Queen's theatrical framework, Satriani was earning recognition for what May reportedly described as instrumental isolation, guitar music that spoke only to other guitarists rather than communicating with everyday listeners. In May's view, guitar should serve the emotional message of a song, not become the entire conversation. As he told Guitar World in 1990, instrumental prowess means nothing without lyrical context. This artistic divide became even more pronounced when instrumental guitar albums began dominating specialist music charts. At 1991 Music Conference, witnesses remembered May questioning the shift toward purely instrumental rock, warning panelists, "We're creating music for musicians instead of music for people, which defeats the entire purpose of popular music." Satriani remained committed to his instrumental focus, uninterested in incorporating vocals, but to May, he embodied guitar's failure to fully communicate. The second most significant rift for May was with Eddie Van Halen, and here the resentment turned deeply personal. His frustration wasn't rooted in Van Halen's songwriting, but in the massive recognition Eddie received for his finger-tapping techniques, a method May believed was overvalued compared to his own innovations. The bitterness reportedly began in the late 1970s when Eruption was hailed as a revolutionary breakthrough for the instrument. Former Warner Brothers executive Ted Templeman recalled May's obsessive analysis of the situation, with May telling him, "Eddie gets praised for one flashy technique, while I've been revolutionizing guitar orchestration for years without anyone noticing." The media loves simple tricks more than complex innovations. For May, the real sting came from the disparity in attention. While he had been quietly perfecting intricate, multi-layered guitar arrangements that could mimic the grandeur of an entire orchestra, Van Halen was being elevated to legendary status for what May reportedly dismissed as one-trick wizardry, brilliant but limited fingerwork that dazzled audiences without advancing the deeper compositional possibilities of the guitar. In May's mind, the industry's fascination with spectacle over substance revealed a troubling trend in how guitar greatness was being defined. Brian May once remarked in a 1981 Guitar Player interview that true innovation should expand what the guitar can accomplish musically, not merely showcase its physical capabilities. This belief underpinned much of his frustration with what he saw as the music industry's fixation on flashy technique over genuine compositional advancement. The competitive undercurrent between him and Eddie Van Halen became more visible when both were ranked in various innovation polls. At 1982 Industry Awards ceremony, witnesses claimed May deliberately avoided Van Halen's celebration table, later confiding to his manager, "He gets credit for being revolutionary, while I get called competent." History remembers the showman, not the architects. Van Halen, seemingly unaware of May's quiet rivalry, publicly praised Queen's guitar arrangements, but to May, he remained a symbol of unequal recognition. Yet, the deepest wound came from his unspoken rivalry with Jimmy Page. In the early 1970s, Page was being universally celebrated as rock's preeminent guitar composer, while May's equally sophisticated arrangements were dismissed as lightweight pop. Former EMI executive Ken Townsend recalled May's meticulous dissection of Led Zeppelin's work, noting how May would point out that Jimmy gets called a genius for blues-based arrangements, while my symphonic guitar orchestrations get ignored because they're attached to sing-along choruses. Academic snobbery is destroying objective musical assessment. May's frustration was not with Page's undeniable talent, but with what he viewed as a critical double standard. While he was crafting multi-layered guitar symphonies that demanded advanced harmonic understanding and orchestral imagination, Page was being immortalized for what may reportedly described as primitive blues extensions, arrangements that sounded grand but were rooted in basic pentatonic scales any intermediate player could learn. Music critic Charles Shaar Murray later claimed that May once told him, "Jimmy Page represents everything wrong with musical criticism. Blues gets called art while pop gets called craft, regardless of actual compositional complexity." Page himself never engaged in the comparison, remaining diplomatically silent. But for May, the disparity embodied the ultimate academic injustice. Simpler work elevated to high art, while complex innovations were sidelined due to genre bias. In the end, even a soft-spoken guitar genius like Brian may carry deep intellectual grievances. Whether he was defending the importance of compositional sophistication or simply longing for the academic recognition he felt was denied to him remains open to interpretation. But his rivalries reveal a man who measured music not just in notes, but in ideas.